off, hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Jumping right to you. Here is Chairman Issa asking Lois Lerner, because there was some confusion on whether she was going to testify or not today, about the IRS scandal. Roll it.
In February 2011, you emailed your colleagues in the IRS the following: Tea Party matter, very dangerous. This could be the vehicle to go to court on the issue of whether Citizens United overturning the ban on corporate spending applies to tax-exempt rules. Counsel and Judy Kindell need to be on this one, please. Cincy should probably not, all in caps, have these cases. What did you mean by Cincy should not have these cases?
On the advice of my counsel, I respectfully exercise my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer the question.
There were some more great questions, mind you, but after a period of time, Chairman Issa said, you know what? We're done. And committee member, ranking committee member for the Democrats, Elijah Cummings, who has his own history with certain groups, that being accused of harassment, but I'll get to that in a second, just exploded. I mean, wow. Roll it.
Ladies and gentlemen, seeking the truth is the obligation of this committee. I can see no point in going further. I have no expectation that Ms. Lerner will cooperate with this committee, and therefore we stand adjourned.
Chairman, I have a statement. I have a procedural question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a procedural question. Mr. Chairman, you cannot run a committee like this. You cannot do this. We're better than that as a country. We're better than that as a committee. I have asked for a few minutes to ask a procedural. Now you're turning me off.
Now, listen to this exchange. It's interesting because it starts to get really heated in just a second.
And I wanted to ask a question.
Now he's getting angry.
What's the big deal?
Getting very angry.
May I ask my question? May I state my statement?
You're all free to leave. We've adjourned, but the gentleman may ask his question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I have one procedural question, and it goes to trying to help you get the information, by the way, that you just asked.
What is your question?
Just trying to
No, let me say what I have to say. I've listened to you for the last 15 or 20 minutes. Let me say what I have to say.
Can I finish?
Chairman, I have one procedural question.
Ms. Lerner, you're released. You may.
But first, I would like to use my time to make some brief points. For the past year, the central Republican accusation in this investigation.
We're adjourned. Close it down.
Okay, all right. Now, Hans, you wrote about this today, and it was, why was Chairman Issa so upset? We'll play the full one later. I just want to get you to weigh in here, because here you have Lois Lerner not answering any questions, and Chairman Issa says, you know what, you're not answering questions. There's no point to this hearing. Your thoughts?
Well, no, exactly. So he made a motion to adjourn, because the only point of the hearing was to see if she would answer questions, which she didn't. But, you know, Elijah Cummings clearly didn't want that. Why? Not because he had a procedural question, which is what he said. He didn't want to ask a procedural question. He wanted to make a big statement, once again charging that there's nothing to this, that there's no reason for this investigation. Look, he's been running interference for the Obama administration ever since this came out, and that's exactly what he wanted to do again today.
Tell me, speak to those in the audience who say this is a Republican witch hunt or a conservative witch hunt. They're paranoid. We're paranoid, Hans. We just, we've got, the story's gotten ahead of the facts that we have, and this is all much to do about nothing.
Well, anybody who believes that should read the report released by the Inspector General of the Treasury Department, which lays out that basically for 2 years prior to the 2012 election, the department targeted conservative organizations applying for a tax-exempt status, targeting them by if they had Tea Party in their name, if they were critical of Obamacare, all of which is, of course, irrelevant totally to the IRS's consideration. And normally, this kind of application process may take a month, 6 weeks. For 2 years, they weren't granting anybody tax-exempt status, and they were asking all kinds of intrusive questions about their members, who their donors were, all kinds of things, information to which they are not entitled. So this idea that this is just a political witch hunt by the Republicans, that is just simply not the case. The IRS was clearly targeting people on the conservative side of the political aisle, and people should be scared about that.
Well, a criminal investigation would make some people scared, like Lois Lerner, and you point out that being head of this division, it is a reasonable strategy to plead the Fifth. Yet we do know that she staged the release of the information. You see, how this goes back, not only the report that you refer to, but we have staged information about the release of this information and how they tried to shape it in the mainstream media. Your thoughts on that and how exactly that happened? Didn't they put a question in and stage the question?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Look, there were a number of times when IRS officials were before House committees, and they were asked whether there was any kind of targeting going on, and they were told every single time, no. And yet, the IRS officials knew that wasn't true, and what happened was the IG was going to release its report on May 14th, 2013. So the week before that report was scheduled to come out, Lois Lerner was speaking at a meeting of the American Bar Association in Washington, and she planted a question with someone in the audience to ask her about it, and that's where she said that there had been inappropriate targeting going on. And the only reason they admitted it was because they knew the IG report was coming out.
So once again, there's a place here where people can read in a cover-up and a release and to try to minimize the damage. Now, Hans, you have to deal with Capitol Hill a lot. You type in your name, you're going to, which I think you should take as a badge of honor, by the way. People will write headlines about how, Hans von Spakovsky got destroyed, this committee thing, and then you watch the video and you realize you're answering the question directly and what the person is trying to do to ask you the question in a particular committee. Here's my point in asking this and referencing that. You're used to it. You have served in the Justice Department. And not that it makes it right, but you're used to it. We're talking about people who decided to get involved in the process of informing people and advocating for their causes, not politics per se. It's about informing people, getting people. Now, maybe a part of that was politics, but the primary purpose was the cause. Hans, why is it that the mainstream media that's supposed to protect the little guy is not recognizing what an abuse of power this is?
Well, because the media, in large part, is liberal, and they don't care that conservative groups were being targeted. I can tell you that if the exact opposite had happened, if this were a Republican administration, they had targeted liberal and progressive groups, Democrats would be outraged. The New York Times would be constantly running headlines about how horrible this was. But they don't care when the roles are reversed. Whereas I have to say, conservatives are concerned when anyone on either side of the political aisle is being targeted by a federal agency like the IRS, because they know what a threat that is to our liberty and our freedom.
Amen. And I think you also would have had movies about this and a potential calls for impeachment that because of the advancement and the meeting times and the comments even by Stephanie Cutter about the IRS, I mean, a whole host of things that you could go to in the political process of this and targeting. I mean, it's a perfect movie because it goes after the little guy who's trying to speak up and really exercise their First Amendment rights. And to me, this is just another glaring example of what you have called out, which is media bias and a willful blindness of a corrupt mainstream media. Terrible stuff there. Hans, the failure of President Obama to get his Civil Rights Division nominee put through, and he was to confirm the man Debo Adebayo. I'm going to blow the name here, but in the cop killing case of Philadelphia cop killer Mumia, thank you, Crane, Abu Jamal, he defended this man. And it was a brutal murder of a Philadelphia police officer, Daniel Faulkner, his name. Why on earth? I understand he didn't get through the process. I got that story. Why did President Obama nominate this guy? I mean, it doesn't make any kind of sense to me, because it's a direct affront. Your thoughts? Well,
he nominated him because he agrees with this nominee's views on race. Look, this incident, defending this cop killer, was bad enough, but there's a whole host of other cases that this man has been involved in where he has gone to court and he believes in racial quotas, in racial preferences. Race infuses absolutely everything that he does. And look, the president clearly agrees with that view, so does Eric Holder, and that's why they wanted him running the Civil Rights Division.
Question, Hans, with the publicity this has, is the calculus that America is still that divided on these issues? Hans?
I don't think so. The Democratic and Republican parties are divided on it, but if you actually talk to ordinary folks, for example, polling shows that a majority of Americans, for example, think that racial preferences in college admissions are wrong, and that goes across all racial and ethnic lines.
Hans von Spakovsky, thank you. As always, great to be with you. Thanks for taking the time tonight. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Crane.
Take care. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. On the flip side, or as Michael from The Office said, the flippity flop, I will bring you Dr. Ray Pritchard and his new book. You want to hear this AFR talk. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.